Hello there, my name is Sixo, but more on that later, as now it's time for today's Toy of the Week video. So before we begin, I hope everyone's continuing to keep well and staying safe during the present time. I actually had my birthday just this last week, so that was a bit of a strange one, especially as we'd originally planned to go away, but quite clearly that didn't happen. Still, it was a lovely day, and I was lucky to get a couple of Transformers-related presents from some great friends of mine, including this rather wonderful Generation 2 slag. Now, it's quite an exciting one for me, as I already have the more standard Generation 2 trio, that being the blue Grimlock, the red Snarl and the green Slag. So red Slag here is my first foray into the alternative colour lineup. Very exciting, and thank you once again to the people involved. Now, if like me you collect TakaraTomy's Masterpiece line, then you may also be a fan of the various releases we've seen over the last few years or so that pay homage to the pre-Transformers era of toys, that being both Diaclone and Microchange, the lines that were then mostly recycled by Hasbro to become the first waves of Transformers toys back in the 80s. We've had a number of these Masterpiece toys released already, going back as far as MP-42 Tiger Track from 2013. They're typically just repainted versions of the main releases, all designed to represent the different colour schemes that were available back in the day before Transformers was even a thing. In fact, even the third-party scene has given it a go, with numerous unofficial designs being given similar treatment and released in alternate Diaclone flavour. So it's taken a little while, but when TakaraTomy announced Masterpiece Sunstreaker was in the works, I think we all expected that there would be repainted versions that would pick up on the pre-Transformers trend, and sure enough that's what we've got. In fact, just a few weeks ago they announced MP-39 Spinout, which is of course a red version that harkens back to the original Sunstreaker's Diaclone origins. I have to say that whilst it looks essentially how I figured it would, the new Spinout toy is still really breathtaking, and it's definitely something I'm quite excited about. I mean, I love this design anyway, so I'm certainly up for giving it another go, especially when it looks as good as this guy. I have been puzzling about the numbering of it though, MP-39+, which is weird because until now, plus has typically been used to signify when an old design is repainted into a more cartoon-accurate colour scheme, or in some instances where a newer, more anime-styled figure is reworked back into a style that is more representative of the original G1 toy. But this is neither of those, so it's weird that TakaraTomy haven't just called it MP-39S or something similar like they used to, or even just a new number altogether like the other version of this mould. Anyway, it just makes me chuckle, as really it proves that there's simply no rhyme or reason behind the Masterpiece numbering system, despite all the various theories I've seen people concoct to try and explain the logic of it over the years. I actually think it's pretty clear at this stage that they're just making it up as they go, and that's fine. I mean, the main thing is that the toys themselves are still pretty good, right? Oh, and on that note, why don't we go ahead and look at today's Toy of the Week, which is of course that other Diaclone version of the Sunstreaker mould I mentioned a minute ago. It's Masterpiece Cordon. Masterpiece MP-42 Cordon was released in 2018 as a repainted and remoulded version of the original MP-39 Sunstreaker from the year prior. The toy transforms into a customised white and black police-themed Lamborghini Countach, featuring an exposed rear-mounted engine, with the design being an immediate reference to the days before the Transformers line even began. It pays direct homage to the toy catchily known as No. 3 Car Robot Countach LP500S patrol car type, which was part of Takara's Diaclone line before the designs were recycled for use as part of Transformers. The original toy has never been used in that white and black colour scheme under the Transformers banner. It was a repaint of the very first figure in the Diaclone car robot lineup, the original red Lamborghini Countach that would serve as the inspiration for G1 Sunstreaker, albeit with a noticeably different colour scheme. In fact, it wasn't until it was released as part of Transformers that the toy was first seen in yellow, despite that arguably now being its default look in many people's eyes, as Sunstreaker has become forever associated with the colour alongside his brother Sideswipe in red. Interestingly though, there is evidence that it was originally Sunstreaker that would be the toy that was released in red, not least of which are the fairly obvious stickers on areas such as his shoulders that match that particular colour scheme. Additionally, there's documentation from the time that indicates this was Hasbro's original plan, including having Sideswipe in a colour scheme akin to the yellow Diaclone New Countach release that has since gone on to be repurposed as the character known as Tigertrack in Transformers. There's also a fairly evident mix-up in the toy's tech spec descriptions, with Sunstreaker's bio mentioning that he can fire rockets, kind of in the way you might expect from Sideswipe's shoulder-mounted rocket launcher, and Sideswipe's bio talking about his arms acting as pile drivers, which could actually be a reference to the shoulder accessories found on Sunstreaker that can be used in place of his hands, as well as a rocket backpack that seems most likely to be a reference to the exposed engine that ends up on the robot mode's back. There's even evidence that Sunstreaker's original character name was going to be Spinout, meaning that the new Masterpiece MP-39 Plus toy really does bring things full circle in many ways. Anyway, convoluted history aside, everyone typically thinks of Sunstreaker as the yellow one now, and it was to great fanfare that he finally underwent the Masterpiece treatment in 2017. The toy was quite noticeably anime-styled in terms of its design, leaning heavily into an aesthetic that attempted to capture the look and feel of the character's animation model as closely as possible. By contrast, Cordon goes back to the character's roots and fully embraces the Diaclone design, sporting a look and feel that vibes the original toy to a hefty degree. A large part of that is the newly moulded head sculpt, which helps to differentiate this release from Sunstreaker, but remains spot on to the original design with that familiar set of red vent earmuffs. There are other newly moulded parts too, such as the detailed shins and the rather infamous light bar boobs, which despite making Cordon look like he's wearing some sort of low-hanging bow tie, also add a welcome splash of colour to that otherwise quite monochrome paint scheme. That's not a sniff in Cordon's direction though, far from it. The toy looks superb from every angle and struts that white and black deco for all it's worth. Everyone loves a man in uniform. The robot mode is perhaps the very peak of modern toy engineering, managing to feel convincingly like a fully articulated and purposeful humanoid action figure design in its own right, to the point where you almost forget that this thing undergoes a surprisingly intricate process to turn into a car mode. The toy can contort and maneuver in ways that previous Masterpiece designs can barely lay claim to, with a sense of fluidity and grace that make it an absolute charm to pick up and play with. In particular, the subtle but effective design of the joints make handling Cordon a real treat, and mean that you should have no trouble ploughing through any number of pliable poses whilst putting him through his paces. Cordon features two distinct pieces of weaponry, the first of which is a chromed handheld blaster, which can also be stored inside a hideaway compartment in his legs, in a rather neat touch. The second is the familiar missile weapon, which can be mounted at the wrist in place of one of his hands, just like on the original toy, and it's something that I know a lot of people would have liked to have seen included with Masterpiece Sunstreaker. In a bit of a twist, this second weapon can also be used as a handheld blaster should you prefer. Really, it looks good either way. Once you're done admiring the robot mode, it's time to get ready for transformation, and whilst I know some people have found this design to be rather complicated, I have to say that I think it's also quite astoundingly intuitive and even, dare I say it, rather fun. It's true there are a lot of steps, but some of the twists and turns required inspire true moments of delight as well, as Cordon contorts in a manner that will likely surprise you more than once along the way. And the result? Well, you'd be hard-pressed to argue against the merits of this particular vehicle form, as the Lamborghini Countach is superlatively represented in Masterpiece toy form yet again. In this case, Cordon features the mark of the Tokyo Police Department, something that had been a feature on a number of other Transformers toys through the years, including the likes of the 2001 Robots in Disguise Prowl. You can also spot the license plate CR03, a clear reference to the original toy's denotation as number 3 in the Diaclone Car Robots line. Elsewhere, there's a level of attention to detail on offer here that is quite unprecedented, even for the Masterpiece line, as paint applications and other touches are all looking quite strikingly on point to give you a vehicle mode that cannot help but impress. It doesn't just rely on good looks, however, as Cordon's car form boasts a fair number of fun flourishes, including those opening Countach doors that serve up some rather unmistakable 1980s flavour. Additionally, you can flip up a set of headlights on the bonnet, giving Cordon another distinct look as he's smoothly chasing down the bad guys. The absolute dish. Without a doubt though, my favourite feature on this design is the engine flip, whereby the whole rear section of the car unpegs and turns over to allow a more traditional and unmodified Lamborghini look. In fact, I credit this particular feature as being one of my personal favourite elements on any Masterpiece toy so far. It's an incredibly fluid bit of design with a simplicity of execution that belies how truly clever it all is. It's worth noting that attention to detail here too, as the main feature on the modified Lamborghini is a larger set of air intakes to serve the souped-up engine. What a number of third-party attempts at this design got wrong was that they also featured the regular Countach intakes on the sides, something that would have been entirely superfluous given the huge honking set of intakes up top. By contrast, the Masterpiece toy only brings the regular intakes into play once the modified section has been flipped out of sight to reveal the standard car design. It's something that most people may not even notice, but it's still inherently clever. I often find I'm unable to decide which version of Cordon's car mode I prefer, as they both work so well. Fortunately, switching between them is quite a bit of fun too, so there's no need to decide. Overall, there's not much to dislike about Masterpiece Cordon, as honestly it's one of the most superbly engineered and well-executed toys I can think of from recent years, not to mention it looks wonderful as part of a Diaclone lineup. Cordon also makes me extremely excited for the upcoming Masterpiece Spinout, and it'll be great to see the original trio of Countach colour schemes all finally released in Masterpiece form. So I'm sure I've gushed on quite enough about Cordon already, but truthfully I can't recommend this toy enough. I'm obviously a big fan of a lot of the earlier Masterpiece carbots, but there's something about Sunstreaker that just tops all of them in my opinion. And Cordon is such a wonderful alternative design and has so many variations to the original that there's really no harm in owning them both. In fact, I'm still kind of hoping that we'll see a G1 toy-style repaint of Sunstreaker too, with the alternative head and detailed moulding. We've seen a few digibashes done of this online already, and they look really stunning, so here's hoping that TakaraTomy follow through one day. Perhaps my only remaining question as far as Cordon is concerned is where that name came from. I mean, I get that it's a reference to Police Cordon, but it makes me chuckle how many puns and memes the choice of moniker has inspired online. After all, I hear Cordon, and the last thing I think about is a Transformer. It's more Cordon Bennett, or James Cordon, or Cordon the Gopher, or Cordon Ramsay, or Flash Cordon.
Gordon's alive!
Or maybe it is a simple police reference after all, and what they've failed to tell us is his rank. He's actually Commissioner Cordon. I don't know. Anyway, I'm sure that's quite enough from me, and if indeed you've sat through all the terrible puns, then a big thank you for watching. If you haven't yet, then please don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and maybe check out some of my other videos whilst you're at it. Oh, and I'll be putting a link to TFSource's listing for both Cordon and Masterpiece Spinout in the video description, so if you are interested in either of those, then be sure to check it out. Quick final shout out to everyone who already supports me on Patreon. The details are coming up at the end of the video, so if you would like to do the same, of course it's very much appreciated. That's it from me, so enjoy the rest of your day. TTFN.